I'm just going to read the story of Zacchaeus. How many of you, when's the last time you actually read the story of Zacchaeus? Probably a while, but I'm just going to read it to you now. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because of this man, too, is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save what was lost." So Ken was supposed to preach on the story of Zacchaeus, and obviously he's not here. So I thought, you know what, I had been thinking about this story for a couple weeks because we met a couple weeks ago and he said that he was going to use this story. So I pondered, and so you know, the one thing that we all know about Zacchaeus is that Zacchaeus was a wee little man. You know the song, Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. So we know that song, I think, from our Sunday school days. And I asked Sarah if actually the kids in her Kids Up program know the song, but they don't. They've never sung it, and they didn't know it. But I'm sure that a lot of you actually have heard that song before. So we kind of know Zacchaeus. We've trivialized his story a little bit, just thinking that he was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. So anyways, but I think that there is a lot more to the story of Zacchaeus. It's actually, and I didn't really know that, I just found that out this week actually, it's the story of Zacchaeus is he's only in the book of Luke, and so he's not in the other Gospels, so I assume that Luke was intrigued by his transformation, his healing, his spiritual transformation. And there's only 8 short verses on his life, the life of Zacchaeus. And I just think that he has actually a powerful testimony. And obviously we know that he was a tax collector, and people hated tax collectors. And I don't think that's really changed too much today. We still don't like the tax man. But needless to say, we have to pay our taxes. But back in that day, I think Zacchaeus was a little bit known as a thief and a robber, and he was probably one of the most hated men in Jericho. So, but I think, you know, we were singing this song earlier, "Lord, I Need You," and there's a phrase there that says that you're the one that guides my heart. And I was thinking about those words today, and you know, God guides our heart into situations where we don't always expect an encounter. And I think, you know, this is just my thinking, but I think that God was guiding Zacchaeus' heart to have an encounter with Jesus. And I think that is so cool. And so Jesus was walking through Jericho. Everyone wanted to hear him teach and speak and watch his miracles, and Zacchaeus was one of them. And you know, Zacchaeus, as you saw in the video, he's a short little man, and he was trying to get through. It's kind of like us, you know, when we're, you know, maybe at a hockey game, and we want to see Wayne Gretzky, and so we're trying to get as close to him as possible, and you know, maybe even touch his hockey jersey or something. And then can you imagine? I'm thinking hockey, I don't know, but Wayne Gretzky saying your name, you know, that he knows your name, that would be quite a thrill, don't you think? But can you imagine for Zacchaeus, He climbs this tree like a little child, like a kid who just wanted to see Jesus so badly. And then Jesus sees him, and he talks to Zacchaeus, and he says his name, Zacchaeus, come down. And then he invites him to his house. Can you imagine the thrill that Zacchaeus was experiencing? I mean, can you imagine getting invited to Wayne Gretzky's house? I think that would be kind of cool. And but I think if it were me, I was thinking, if, say, Jesus invited me or wanted to come to my house, I would think, I got to go home first and clean my house. I don't know if I would want a guest coming over until I know that my house is clean. But Zacchaeus did not care at all. He had no inhibitions. He just was so welcoming. Jesus just went right to his house. He didn't care what was there. And I think, Zacchaeus didn't care what was in his heart. He knew that he was a sinner, and no matter what, Jesus saw everything. And he didn't worry about how messy his place was. He didn't worry about how messy his heart was. And perhaps, that's how we feel like sometimes when we have an encounter with Jesus, our lives can be so messy that we can't even begin to think that Jesus might want to have a place in our lives. And or have Jesus sitting at our table and eating with us, because our lives are so cluttered with other stuff. And so what happens, I think, sometimes then we don't climb the sycamore tree. And we don't want to have that encounter, so we don't look for Jesus, so we don't climb the sycamore tree to see Jesus more clearly. So we stand back and we might say, Jesus is for you, but there's no way that he can love me. And I think the sycamore tree is a symbol of that place in our lives where, this is a quote that I wrote, that I got from somewhere, with the same lack of caution which Zacchaeus demonstrated in climbing the tree, he came down from the tree to stand in the presence of God incarnate. There he heard the call that would change his life forever. When God calls, we have only one choice: to respond without reserve. We should always look for Jesus passing by. So ask yourself, where is Jesus passing through in your lives? He is always there if our eyes are open to him. Is he in your workplace, passing by in your workplace? Is he passing by in your relationships with your spouse, with your kids, your families? Are we running out to meet him? Are we climbing the tree to see him? Or are we afraid? Are we afraid of Jesus seeing our mess, our hearts? What if he asks us to come to his, or what if he asks us that he can come to our house? The invitation of the story is to climb up that sycamore tree, to find that place so we can see Jesus clearly, so we can hear him call our name. He knows us full well. What an incredible thrill that must have been for Zacchaeus. His life transformed from a cold-hearted thief to a brand new creation who was willing to just give back everything he had taken and 4 times more. How extraordinary is this wonderful love of God, this wonderful mercy of God, this wonderful grace of God. The God of the entire universe came among us, a man, to show us the love of the Father and how we are now invited through his life, through his death and his resurrection, to live in this world. Zacchaeus teaches us about life in a sycamore tree. Let us learn to live our lives always looking for Jesus. We all carry various burdens. We have struggles. Sometimes we're in the storms. And sometimes that prevents us from living the life God intended. Christ's sacrifice, though, reminds us that he defeated every last thing that might inhibit his people. This is the charge to us all. Come awake and be one with Christ.